Let's talk straight, no filters, no fluff. You asked how what happened under Hitler compares to what happened under Trump, specifically regarding the camps. It's a heavy question, and people get real uncomfortable when you even hint at comparing anything to the Holocaust. But we're not here to protect feelings, we're here to protect truth. So, let's walk through it. Side by side. Fact by fact. Not to dramatize, but to recognize patterns before they get too far. First, let's get this straight. Trump didn't build death camps. Let's be clear, we are not saying Trump's camps were Auschwitz. There were no gas chambers, no organized plan to exterminate millions, no genocide. That level of evil belongs to Nazi Germany, and nothing in modern US history matches it in scale, brutality, or intent. But, and this is the uncomfortable truth for some, just because it's not a death camp doesn't mean it's not a human rights violation. Trump's camps are real. And they are cruel. They aren't hoaxes or liberal lies. They are real facilities with real people, including babies, locked in cages, sleeping on concrete floors, separated from their families. These are ICE detention centers, operating under Trump's zero-tolerance immigration policy, particularly ramped up in 2018. Children ripped from their parents' arms, often with no plan to reunite them. Some kids, toddlers, were detained for months or even years. Reports showed psychological trauma, sexual abuse, and even deaths. That's not a policy disagreement. That's state-sanctioned cruelty. Let's talk about the psychology, the playbook. Here's where the parallels get uncomfortably close. Dehumanization of a group. Hitler called Jews vermin. Trump called immigrants animals, rapists, invaders. That language isn't just offensive, it paves the way for abuse. You dehumanize first, then you violate. Mass detention equals social control. Nazis rounded up Jews, Roma, disabled, and political enemies. Trump's administration rounded up immigrants, many of whom committed no crimes other than crossing a border to seek asylum, a legal right under international law. Silence and complicity. Germans said, "We didn't know." Americans knew damn well what was happening. The images were everywhere. And still, many shrugged, justified it, or called it fake news. Propaganda over truth. Hitler had Goebbels. Trump had Twitter, Fox News, and an army of loyal mouthpieces spinning everything into us versus them. Nationalism on steroids. Deutschland über alles. America first. Both slogans were wrapped in flags while human lives were crushed underneath. Children still haven't been returned. That's a detail many want to forget. As of 2024, over 1,000 children remain separated from their families, some with no record of who or where their parents even are. That's not a glitch in the system. That is the system. This is not about left or right. This is about right or wrong. If you only care about human rights violations when they happen in other countries, you're a hypocrite. What happened under Hitler was a monstrous genocide. What happened under Trump was a systematic dehumanization of desperate people and the normalization of cruelty as policy. Different scale? Yes. Different outcome? Thankfully. Different moral rot? No. Final truth bomb. The road to tyranny doesn't start with ovens. It starts with cages. It starts with language. It starts with laws that chip away at dignity. It starts with people looking away while others suffer. And it always starts with someone saying, "Those people don't belong here." Don't say "never again" if you don't mean it. Don't point at history if you're not willing to stand against the same blueprint today. And don't act shocked when the same cruelty shows up wrapped in a different flag. We don't compare to downplay the past. We compare to wake the hell up before it's too late. During Hitler. Why they said we didn't know, but they absolutely did. Let's have a raw conversation. Not polished. Not censored. Not politically correct. Let's talk about how the world allowed one of the most monstrous crimes in human history to happen in plain sight. Let's talk about how an entire society, educated, modern, civilized, became an accessory to mass murder by doing what too many still do today, nothing. We didn't know. That's the excuse we've heard for decades from German citizens who lived through the rise of Hitler and the reign of the Third Reich. They say they didn't know what was happening. They say the Holocaust was hidden from public view. They say they would have done something if they had known. Let me break that myth wide open. They knew. They just didn't want to believe it, or they didn't want to care enough to stop it. Asterisk. 1. Let's stop pretending the signs were everywhere. Ordinary Germans, I'm talking bakers, teachers, businessmen, mothers, saw people disappear overnight. Jewish families. Roma people. Political dissidents. Gay men. People with disabilities. One day they were neighbors. The next day they were ghosts. They saw the trains packed to the brim, headed east. Not carrying soldiers or supplies. Just ordinary people, herded like animals. They heard SS officers drunk in taverns, bragging about their missions. They saw ghettos sealed. They saw Jews forced to wear yellow stars. They heard whispers of beatings, deaths, and camps. Let me be clear. You can't witness a society be gutted from the inside out and claim you were unaware. They may not have known the industrialized horror of gas chambers, but they knew people were being taken, tortured, silenced. And instead of raising hell, they raised their glasses. Or worse, they raised their hands in salute. 2. The Nazis tried to hide the killing, but only for show. Yes, the Nazi regime used phrases like final solution, relocation, and special treatment. Yes, they placed camps away from Berlin or Munich to avoid attention. Yes, they destroyed documents as the Allies closed in. But none of this would have been possible without public cooperation and willful ignorance. The Gestapo didn't have millions of spies. It didn't need them. It had neighbors ratting out neighbors. The silence wasn't from lack of knowledge. It was from lack of backbone. 3. The world knew. The world failed. Let's stop making excuses for the rest of the planet, too. By 1942, the Allies knew. They intercepted messages. They received reports. They read the testimonies smuggled out by the Polish underground. British and American newspapers printed some of it. But the headlines were small. The reaction was tepid. The action? Barely a flicker. You know why? Because politicians decided that fighting for Jewish lives wasn't worth risking political capital. Because bureaucrats stalled. Because xenophobia still ran through the veins of free nations. They knew. They turned the page. They moved on. 4. Survivors spoke up and got ignored. After liberation, survivors spoke. They screamed. They wept. But what did they get? Dismissed. Called liars. Told it couldn't have been that bad. Even as the footage rolled. Even as the mass graves were uncovered. Even as the camps stood there, silent monuments of terror. So why did the world claim we didn't know? Because it was easier to sleep at night pretending you were innocent. Because it was safer to shut your eyes than open your mouth. Because fear, comfort, and tribalism are powerful drugs. Because anti-Semitism was already baked into the foundation of Europe, and deep down, a lot of people simply didn't care. And here's the part that should chill you to your core. It's still happening today. Different names. Different nations. But the same playbook. People vanish. Governments use coded language. Whistleblowers get silenced. Citizens say, well, that's not my problem. If you sit in silence while injustice unfolds, you are not neutral. You are fuel for the fire. You don't need a gun in your hand to help tyranny. All it takes is silence. Never again is not a slogan, it's a test. A test of who you are. A test of what you'll tolerate. A test of whether you'll pretend you didn't know or whether you'll stand up, speak up, and fight back. Because here's the real truth. History doesn't repeat itself. People do. And every time it happens again, it's because too many folks told themselves, that's not my business. The camps didn't get built in secret. They got built with silence. And silence? That's the deadliest weapon of all. Video was made with AI, but it was. Written by Santiago D.C. Copyright 2025 Independent Writer, Newsflash Facebook. Content Creator, Santiago D.C. All rights reserved.